Can you all hear me? See me? All those things that I always say at the beginning of streams, just drop in the chat if y'all can, if I'm live and all that jazz. Can you guys hear me and see me? Okay, cool. Cool. All right, so tonight we're basically going to be just filling out a chart, just a big, spice chart that we're going to be filling out for all of the 6 documents. And basically what it is just going to be me looking at the chat and filling in a box, and you guys are basically going to be the guys running this stream tonight. So I mean, I'll kind of guide you guys through it, but mostly it's just going to be y'all dropping, terms and stuff in the chat that relate to the spice themes that we're looking at in tonight's theme or in tonight's stream. Sure, let me just move this up here. If you guys see me like kind of doing this all night, it's because I'm looking at the chat, which is on a monitor up there. So that's kind of the main thing that's going on. But basically, I forgot to share my screen. That's fun. There we go. Just share my screen real quick. There we go. All right, so if you want to get onto the chart for tonight, you just kind of click that little green button on the bottom, and then you can get on in. All right, so let's just kind of jump right into all this. So so this is really the chart for tonight. We're basically just going to be filling this out. The main focus is just going to be on the spice themes, so I'll kind of run through those real quick. So the first spice theme is the social theme, which is basically like things like gender, race, class, the social part of society, the things that are the interactions between people and how they work together and stuff like that. With politics, you see things like political conflicts, wars, governmental agencies, governmental political parties, political ideologies, and also political bodies. So things like specific empires and other types of things like that. The I is interaction with the environment. So these are things like diseases, agriculture, migrations, anything that really has to do with humans and the environment and how that impacts history. We also see the culture. So we see, again, like religions, art, science, things that can be tied to a specific area that define that area as a culture. And finally, the economy. So things like jobs, labor, economic philosophy, stuff like that. So let's go right into the chat. All right, so we're going to pretty much just jump right into this. So let's just start off right with the social for period 1. So I'm just going to let you guys like drop in the chat things that you can think of for period 1 that have to do with, social mobility or social, think about periods 1 or 2 when you think about that, So just drop in the chat. Okay, it's not that bad. We can see egalitarian, caste system. Okay. So yeah, we're seeing the development of things like patriarchy after the Neolithic Revolution. And then I saw we dropped in egalitarianism. So we see things like the Paleolithic era. We see egalitarianism. All right, I'm trying to like just follow you guys. Little social mobility. See Hammurabi's code, right? That would also fit under the political thing. See nomadic communities. What else do we see? Small kinship band. Exactly. That's really what we see. Egalitarian basically means, equal. Exactly. All right. So you guys are kind of just dropping whatever you guys can think of for period 1. Try to think social specifically. Social classes. How does think period 1 and 2. So Neolithic Revolution, classical era, things like that. Stratification, right? We have things, so we see that the Neolithic Revolution, see social hierarchies like we mentioned. Right, so think Stateless societies, right? We see like the development of, you know, that would be more political. Theocracy, that might fit into political, since it's a political, thing. We see slaves. That's definitely a good thing. Not a good thing, but something a good thing to note. Yeah, we see kind of economic, social mobility. So we see an economic social classes, specialization of labor definitely could be uh, considered social. So we see like new merchant slash artisan classes. You know, period 1 and 2 are basically just early civilization. So things like, you know, period 1 is the Neolithic Revolution and really the beginning of society, and then period 2 is the classical era, right? You have these classical empires that are really important to know, right? So keep thinking about things that are social, right? Social classes, social mobility. Um, think about specific things to do with social classes in specific areas, maybe. If you can think of a specific person or a specific type of class of people that are usually considered higher on the social ladder. Yeah, River Valley stuff is period 1, right? So we see aristocracies. We see aristocracies form. You see things like the patricians in Rome versus the plebeians, right? In China, they didn't make like peasants, right? Nomads, elites. We see satraps in Persia, right? So we're kind of starting to get into a little bit of the political side of things. So I think we'll start there. We can see that priests are usually on the top of the social ladder. Right. So I think that's good for social for period 1. So I think you guys can keep dropping things if you want. Let's start to move right into that's a good one. Let's start to move into the political side of things, right? What political bodies form and how do they impact what we're talking about in period 1 and 2. I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Y'all are moving fast. And again, try to stick to periods 1 and 2. So, you know, just think 600 to 8,000 to 600. Right? We see democracy in Athens, city states in like Mesopotamia, image of heaven, Confucianism. That might be more cultural. Whoa, okay, you just dropped a bunch. Yep, Justinian's Code. That's more period 3. Where we see direct democracy in Rome. Right. We see legalism, civil service exams, exactly. So try to think of like specific bodies that we see in this time period. What like empires, right? So we have the Zhou, Shang, and Qin, and Han. We have the Rock and Pillar Edicts, the Roman Empire, right? So try to again think of like specific empires that we see rather than again more political philosophies because it's more important to know, right? We see the Gupta empires, empire. We see Athens and Sparta, and also just in general, the Olmecs, the Phoenicians, the Mauryans, Mayans, right? You guys are just dropping all these. You guys are doing good. Okay. You see the what are they called? You see the Mesoamerican empires. You see Alexander the Great slash the Macedonian Empire, right? You see the Achaemenids, right? In in Persia, in the Hellenistic age, right? Right. Persians. So now try to think of, like, you guys mentioned a couple already, some things that are going on with politics. So I think, start in a specific area. Try to think like Rome. What's the political things looking like in Rome, right? Try to stick to period 1 and 2. All right, we see wars between Rome and Greece. See the Persian Wars, the Trojan Wars, right? Peloponnesian Wars. See, right? Right, we see the Tribune and the Senate, especially in the Republic. And then we see the Emperor in Rome, right? So we have the large emperor that happens in Rome. To the Punic Wars, right? And right now it feels like it's moving really fast. So, like, if you guys ask me to explain something, drop it in the ask a question box, and I can explain it after. Right, we see Hinduism and politics. Right, we see Julius Caesar and his assassination. Satraps in Persia, Warring States era. Right, Caesar. All right, so it seems like we're kind of slowing down with political. Octavian, Augustus, right? We have all of we see the Greek city-states. What else do we see? Try to think of maybe some more. Right, we see the Huns, White Huns, and the Xiongnu. To the end, fall of empires, Roman Kingdom, the Republic, Empire. Right, we see the Germanic peoples. We see the Han and Roman bureaucracy, right? Political fragmentation, and then reunification of China, right? To the fall of Western Rome, right? Pericles. Right. So it seems like we have a lot for politics already. So we can say, like, what else can we see? So think about now the interaction with the environment. The first thing I'm seeing is overexpansion and too much land, right? That could definitely be considered an environmental thing. Smallpox and measles. To the Neolithic Revolution, right? Especially to the development of agriculture. To irrigation, definitely. Aqueducts. Geography leads to the city-states. We see pastoralism, exactly. Pastoralism. Slash and burn. Desertification we don't really see until period 6. See Khanats, I believe, were in this time period. I'm making a ton of spelling errors, but I'll go in and fix those. Domestication of animals. Right, we see water leading to river civilizations. Deforestation begins. Roads, smallpox. We see the beginning of terrace farming, end of hunter gathering. Right, Indo-European migrations. Definitely something that we see. Oh, we see the out of Africa theory too, right? Beasts of burden, exactly, with right, beasts of burden. Things like the cow, right? The pig, the sheep. And in the Americas, we see the llama, right? We see we see agriculture, growing, rise in population. Metallurgy, sure, yeah, I guess that would work, right? Metallurgy, we can see that leads to, like, the Bronze Age, right? And the right, the wheel, that could be more technology. Intermigrations are later. Tribute system of the Incas are later. What you said, Sydney, that's really more period 3. I said the Connaught. Right, the excess of crops, use of floods, right, in Egypt and Sumer. Flooding, strategic, right? Strategic use for farming. The general themes row. I can maybe add that at the end and we can go through them period by period. Right, we see the Hittites, especially they're known for their iron. We see the development of fire, crop rotation. That begins then? I don't think that begins then. Right, we see here I'll add dogs and goats up there. Right, I'll add it. I'll add it here. Right, I don't know how to quite add it here. There. Feudalism wasn't until period 3, really. Wait, where are we going? There we go. All right. Can you guys think of anything else for interaction with the environment? Right, pastoralists we mentioned, right, weapons. All right. Let's see what we can do here. Climate change. The Great Wall was built. We can consider this probably more political things here. I'll add it up here. Right, it's used as a way of protecting China. How do I? Can't see my mouse, so it's rough. Little life stages later. Stone tools, yeah, definitely. That could be considered technology. Canals, right? Canals could be a thing. Here, I'll add those all in. Yeah, a lot of you guys are saying things that are period 3. Try to think more period 2, right? You know, what happens in period 1 and 2 that really, connect these, right? We see animal textiles. We mentioned Indo-Europeans. What else? Canals and roads. There we go. See the agricultural revolution. Bronze Age we mentioned. Bantu migration for period 3. All right, so I think we have a lot for period 1, right? Yeah, for interactions. Let's try to move on to culture, right? Cultural diffusion, right? We see. There we go. How do I? Oh, all right. So yeah, let's think religions, right? Just drop some religion. Hinduism, Buddhism. We see Swahili, Taoism, Confucianism, Christianity, Hebrews, right? I mentioned Buddhism, Judaism, ancestor net veneration, shamanism, Zoroastrianism. Yeah, I'm sorry for all the formatting issues. I'll go in and fix those afterwards so you guys can kind of see it better. Right, monotheism. So that kind of kicks it all with the religions. So yeah, we see cave paintings. I saw hieroglyphics. Shinto, definitely. Olmec heads. See oracle bones. Polytheism, right? So we see that in Mesopotamia and Egypt. We see painting showing religious, right? Religious and art come in. Epic of Gilgamesh, right? It's definitely something to know. Oh, God, these are coming in fast. Greco-Roman philosophy. Aristotle, right? We also see Plato and Socrates. Mayan star charts will probably be period 2, yeah. Pyramids and ziggurats. Gupta, math innovations, 0. We see, right? We see cuneiform. Arabic numerals come in not a bit later. Divine right. So we see the mandate of heaven come in again. The Kipu is a bit later. Plumbing, right? arches and architecture, right? The alphabet from the Phoenicians. We see nuns and missionaries, religion, aqueducts we mentioned earlier, but let's do that again. Human sacrifice comes later. Legalism is more political. Okay, Hellenism, literature, merchants, right? That could be put under economic. This is period 1 and 2 we're looking at, right? Homer's Odyssey, right? Where am I? Wait, whoa. We go Stoicism. Hammurabi's Code we mentioned. Greek culture we mentioned, right? Taoism we put up somewhere, but I'll put it again. The Great Baths, yokes and saddles, reincarnation, astrology, Greek rationalism, Acropolis, the Vedic texts, the Upanishads, Buddhism we mentioned, Zoroastrianism we mentioned, the Hanging Gardens, right? Ooh, got a lot of stuff. The wheel, right, gets invented. Bible and Torah, ancestral veneration we mentioned. The team sales are a bit later. The Hanging Gardens are basically just a Babylonian myth, kind of. They might have been real at one point, but we don't know. They were just a monument. We see calendars start to get developed. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I think we've kind of really covered culture in periods 1 and 2. So now let's move on to economics, right? What's going on with trade, with the actual, the way that people are making money, Just drop in the chat, trade, right? We see trade routes develop. So give me some trade routes, right? The Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean, Trans-Sahara, right? We see trading centers, right? So we see Mediterranean trade. We start to see caravans rise. The royal roads. What do we see in terms of labor, right? What happens to after the Neolithic revolution, what happens to jobs, right? Paper money comes in period 3. Specialization of labor, exactly. So we see people like artisans, right? We see merchants, merchant class. We see artists, artisans, we mentioned, right? We see time for leisure, right? So we see the surplus of goods and food, right? So we see Rome, Athens, Chang'an as trading centers. Social class is more social, so whoa, okay, people are like screaming. We see the barter system, which leads to then money being developed. Where we see coins. We see taxes for the first time, right? Coins, yep. Paper money's in period 3. Coins, yep, I mentioned coins. Tribute systems, right? Tribute, that's more period 3, actually. Jizya was period 3. The Arabian Peninsula was really period 3. Yeah, try to keep the periods 1 and 2. Right, so we see the Han and Rome become connected. Okay, the Lydians developed coinage, cash crop. It's for period 4. The, okay, all right, guys. Try not to like spam in the chat and say, try not to, do stuff like that. Spice trade is more period 3, 4, but they probably started around here. We see things like trying to see what you guys are saying. Right, canals and roads, trade. Right, plows and stuff would be more technology. You see camels being used, right? Yep, taxes also in Rome. Gupta, Han. Grand canals period 3. Camel saddles is period 3 as well. So we'll, all this stuff that you're saying is great, but it's period 4 or period 3. I mean, there we see bronze, right? The Bronze Age, leading to metallurgy, trade. All right, okay, let me just, I'm gonna get rid of him. There we go. Okay. People are writing scriptures, right? We can see that writing, where am I? Lost myself. There we go. So we can see that writing leads to the development of scriptures and the tracking of stats. Nubia, right? Iron trading. All right, so that seems to kind of, we see the codification of law codes. I'll drop that up in political. That's a good one. I'll drop that up here. Right, so Hammurabi's, we see the Greek treasury, right? Exactly. Where are we? Oh my God, I can't control this. Right, so we see Vinci Huangdi, he standardized currency. Cotton doesn't really start taking off, to my knowledge, until periods 4 and 5. I could be wrong. See salt/gold trade begin. It really takes off in period 3, but I'll put it there as begins. This period, people started writing in this time. These seals in Mesopotamia. Slavery, right? As a labor system. All right, that seems like we kind of did that. All right, so you guys still want me to do a general themes category? Or do you want to do that right at the end as like a major overview of the entire course? All right. At the end. Okay. Perfect. Okay, I'm seeing end. Right. Okay. So let's move on to period 3. Right. That took, just this first period took 30 minutes. So you can see that as these start to get bigger, this is definitely going to take longer. This is definitely not going to be an hour-long stream. So let's start here. So let's do the same thing we did for periods 1 and 2, except now for period 3. So give me some social classes, some social things that happened in period 3. What happened with gender, race, class, you see Islam and women. So what specifically about Islam and women? What do we see with that? Lowered women's status, patriarchy. I saw feudalism, right? So we can see peasants, kings, foot binding, hijab, caste system continues. Foot binding is period 3 with the Song dynasty. Sati, veiling of women, the Tang, women's rights, serfs, right? We see that. Lords, polygamy, right? The daimyo in Japan. We see filial piety continues. Buddhist women, or rights, nuns. Oh, geez. Here we go. Right. So we see the feudal system. Right. So we see continued social stratification. Right. Neo-Confucianism, that would go under culture. Harem, samurai. That system continues. We mentioned. That's period 4. Renaissance period 4. Samurai, we mentioned. Yeah, the caste system is probably, it's still today probably is really just as strict. We see knights. We see Christianity runs the social system. In Europe, we see diasporic communities. Civil service exam would probably go under political. Buddhism in China. You try to think social still. Don't just say Buddhism in China or something like that. Try to mention like, what about the Mongols makes them social, right? So I'll mention like we see the Mongols, social equality, right? We see in the Incas, we see coerced labor. That would probably be economic. Encomiendas period 4. Zen Buddhism would be culture. Buddhism, that'd be period 2, actually. I'll add that later. Bantu migrations would be interactions. We'll get there. Increased status of merchants. China. Crusades would be probably political again. Great Schism would be political. So yeah, let's start moving into political, right? So we got a lot of the social classes and social changes. And again, we could always add more later. So you see the Crusades that you're mentioning, the Great Schism, Justinian's Code. Legalism continues from period 2, but that's period 2. We see the Mongol Empire, right? Church in Europe. We see the Kievan Rus. Tribute system, right? That's when we see the tribute system. The Mongols, divine right comes later, a bit later. Byzantine Empire, feudal Japan, right? Luther against the churches a bit later. Sui Tang and Song, the Aztec and Incas, Kings. Right, we can also talk about them in economic. Constantinople's a big bit. Caliphates, Sultanate. Dividing Christendom, we see the Abbasids, right? And Umayyads, Ghana and Mali. You'll see Timbuktu. See the Shogunate, Samurai. Mansa Musa would probably go under economic. Khanates, Ronghae, Gili Coast cities, Great Zimbabwe, Baghdad, right? We can also put that under culture when we talk about the Baghdad House of Wisdom. Golden Horde we mentioned with the Khanates. So try to think now, like, think, let's say Byzantine Empire. What was the politics like in the Byzantine Empire? Name people, name, what's going on in there, for example. Roman Empire. Codified law comes in period 2. Justinian, Theodora, Empress Wu. Papism, right? That's a big thing. Justinian's Code, based off 12 tables. Fleming comes a bit later. Charles Martel, right? See him in the Battle of Tours. I want to say that's 732. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong. So, the Hagia Sophia would probably go under culture. Edict of Milan comes in period 2. So I'll add all these in later. Unification of Mongols. If you guys are looking for the link to the document, if you click on the little green button that says chart document on your screen, you should be able to access the document. Disney would probably go under economic. Edict of Milan is period 2. Here, I'll add that to period 2. Here we go. Genghis Khan, right? I'm surprised we haven't said him yet. I feel like I have seen him. Genghis. We've seen manorialism. Islamic Spain, right? We see the Moors. Clovis, right? We see Clovis and I want to say France. Someone correct me. Andalus. The Holy Roman Empire is period 4, so we'll say those later. Right, let's think Latin America. What political things do we see going on there? Especially think Aztecs and Incas. Mayan sacrifices. We see Aztecs. So what about the Aztecs? What political things were going on there? Right, we see Mayan sacrifices. Ballgame would be culture. Think politics. And try to think less. Montezuma would probably be period 4, I want to say. Incan socialism is economic. Tenochtitlan, right? City-states. Oh, it was. Okay, then Holy Roman Empire, I guess. Oops. The Ottomans are 1453, so just after this. Sun god would be culture. Justify labor to religion. That might be more culture, or in economics, so try to remember that. Conquered land. Well, I mean, that's kind of generic. Franks, that's something. Right, so we see Islamic expansion. We haven't written that yet. Right, so we see things like the jihads, right, the jihad. Incan roads might be an interaction. Incan road systems, that might be, Vikings, I think we mentioned. Italian city-states. Sharia law. Vikings raiding in Europe, we mentioned. I see text and that. Incan roads. Machu Picchu. German tribal takeover will probably be more period 2. See the Kush Empire. The Ottoman Turks take over. Byzantine, 1453. The Mamluks, the Seljuks. The Pueblo. Sunni and Shia we mentioned. Kali and Mono we mentioned. Iroquois, okay, so you can say like Native Americans. Bizarre period 4, really, like when he's significant. The Mongols we mentioned. Ibn Battuta, we could probably say economic or social or cultural. Tribal alliances we see. Sea-based empires, that's more period 4. All right, so on that note, let's start moving into interaction with the environment, right? So, what happens with the environment during this time period? Monsoons, Grand Canal, that might be economic, really. Black Death, definitely. anti-migrations, Chinampas. See the deforestation again, black plague, land exhaustion, smallpox. You'll see a couple things really grow. Champa rice, the diasporas again, bananas in Africa trade spread. See typhoid, a little ice age. That's period 4. We see crop rotation, right? See the 3-field system. Here, I'm going to drop the link to the thing in chat because you guys have been asking for it. There you go. So you see bubonic plague, like we mentioned. 3-field system, we mentioned. We're looking at interaction in the environment, right? So we see Tenochtitlan waterways. It started in the late Middle Ages, but it's more relevant in period 4. Polynesian migrations. Yep, crop rotation. Viking migrations. Potatoes. We haven't done cultural yet. Anti-migration mentioned cola nuts. This one I consider to be one of the harder ones. Arabic and Turkish migrations, okay. Polynesian mentioned, Champagne, Zhenghe, he's more economic again. Yellow and Yangtze rivers. Connect that to the Grand Canal. See Champa rice, Chinampas, I think we do mention. No, yeah, we did. All right. That's period 4. Europeans don't go to the Americas until period 4. Warus. That's related to technology, so that's more cultural. Terracing, definitely. See that in Machu Picchu. Maize in Mesoamerica. Right, we see common schedule again, technology, so cultural. Monsoon winds we mentioned. It's economic. Soil degradation. We see the Swahili language, right? That's cultural, actually. Earth farming we mentioned. Gunpowder Empire is period 4. Swahili language is cultural. Trans-Saharan trade is economic. The water wheel. Trade across the Nile is more period 1, 2. Swamp draining. See steppes, right? Sugar. Citrus farming. Yeah, a lot of these could fit into both. So here, I'll put Swahili language. That's, I'd consider it a cultural thing. Slash and burn continues. Okay. Teen sales, that could be considered technology. The ocean trade is more economic. Let's see. Right, we see the like the warm Middle Ages, I've heard people call it. Pastoralism continues a bit. Yes, we see like nomadic tribes still, they're still around. Oh, geez. Airborne diseases. There we go. Medicine, right? We definitely see medicine start to get developed. We mentioned the Waru technique. Spread of culture, right? So that's cultural. Right, interactions. We said the bantu migrations. William the Conqueror, we consider political, so I'll write that up there. All right. So we see irrigations, deforestation we mentioned, Chinese expansion. Urbanization does happen during this time, so we really want to focus on the effects of such urbanization. You see growing cities leading to crowding. It's all period 2. All right. All right, so let's move on to some of them continue, but really most of them are stuck in period 2. Where we see epidemics because of crowding, monsoon winds, smallpox, right? So a lot of these things we mentioned. So yeah, let's start to move on to the cultural part. And so I saw a lot of you guys mentioning a lot of cultural things that happened in this time period. So think religion, here, sanitation, actually, yeah. There we go. All right, so we see Islam, right? It's a big thing in this time period. Neo-Confucianism, Zen/Chan, Buddhism, foot binding, Hagia Sophia, teen sales, Quran, naval technology, flying cash be economic. We see culture spread from the Crusades. We see the compass, the astrolabe, rudders, Sufis, definitely. The Kifu, right? Sunni and Shia. See the development of right Eastern Orthodox, geometry and algebra, religious syncretism. I butchered that word, but I want to fix it. Chivalry, and then we can, Shido, Islamic scientific knowledge, Cordoba, block printing is period. Obviously, the Baghdad House of Wisdom, missionaries. Writing, it begins in period 1, so we put in there. Seppuku, right? We can consider that's culture. The great schism we mentioned in political, scholar gentry, gunpowder, porcelain, silk, right? See dyes, foot binding we mentioned, paper monies, economic, heliocentrism, all that stuff's kind of the scientific revolution, which is period 4. Pax Mongolica. We see oral literature, golden age of Islam, astronomy begins, right? New Confucianism we mentioned before. Like Buddhism in China, right? Marco Polo and Ibn Battuta we can mention, right? Interregional travelers. Aristotle's period 2. Feudalism. So what about feudalism? What's the culture of feudalism? Timbuktu and scholars. Riots. Angkor Wat, definitely, right? So we see that's a Buddhist Hindu temple in, I forget where it is. Jainism, Sikhism starts to develop during this time period. It's more period 4. Right? Absolute obedience. Serfs were treated poorly. We mentioned serfs and social. Daimias and the shogunate, right? So starts to think more about art and science and technology as opposed to social classes. Right. So try to tell me some art pieces. Kabuki, that's period 4. Serfdom we mentioned. Slavery started pretty much at the beginning of history. See Bushido, compass, Mississippi mounds. We see printmaking, tailed the Genji, exactly. Kabuki, not Genji, Genji. Muslim tales, right? We see Kokia, religious art, Gothic architecture. See things like flying buttresses, arches. We see the Canterbury Tales. Little to no secular art, castles, universities. Tapestries, okay. The sextant, acrylic, which is that again? Acrylic language, right? Definitely. Mosques, Romanesque versus Gothic. Taj Mahal's period 4, Notre Dame, or I think it's 1200s. Cross staffs, back staffs. I'm not sure what those are. Stained glass. Onion domes, right? Monasteries, cathedrals. Muhammad, right? He creates Islam. Mud and timber mosque. State-run factories, I think it's period 5. Cordoba, right? We also see Constantinople. Hajj. Pichu could definitely be considered a cultural thing along with an interaction thing. Mecca, we see that as a pilgrimage site. Mansa Musa, he's again more economic. 5 pillars, right? Definitely. Accidentally started a new tab. There we go. All right, the Forbidden City. I think that was Rome. Someone correct me. The Healy Coast. Ina. Wait, so we see the what it's called, the Kaaba, right? Pre-Islam. Now it's become an Islamic attraction. Right, so culture of China, maybe, right? Oh, Forbidden City, what's China? I'm dumb. Oops. Beijing, no Beijing. Okay. Right, the Byzantine walls. Zoroastrianism. Spread of Islam. The Heian Shrine. We see Sinification, right? See Chinese influences. Civil service exams. Hinduism and Buddhism. Reforms, right? All right, so I think we have enough for that. So now let's move right into the last theme for period 4, which is economics. And I already know this is definitely going to go well over 2 hours, which means that I might have to start a second stream since Crowdcast only allows us to go up to 2 hours. All right, so start giving me, economics. Timbuktu, Chang'an, geez, Jillian just like dropped a bunch of cities. Flying money, Norialism, Mansa Musa, fur trade, tributes, Hanseatic League, guilds, Trans-Saharan trade, spice trade, credit and banking, taxes, joint stocks period 4, flag money, monsoon winds, see Indian Ocean trade, you see southernization, intensification of trade, right? Silk roads, see caravanserai, see the Grand Canal, Zheng He, right? He's in this period in the next one. Vasco da Gama's period 4, map making and cartography, salt and gold trade takes off in Africa, agricultural system goes down, feudal economy, manorialism we mentioned, and Saharan, right? Trade routes. Camels, and then from that we also see the saddle, serfdom, spice trade, caravans. No, the Kahoot thing isn't tonight. We see the Meta system. We see manners, horse collar, okay. Srivijay, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Chile city-states, domestic labor system, Mongols unite trade, gunpowder spreads, design, right? So we see the Tao, the junk. We see We see eventually leads to the caravel. We'll see the flute, weaponry, merchant class. Favorite money we see slave trade increases, forced labor. We'll definitely see a lot more in period 4. Right, we see southernization. Orvi, see the Khmer Empire, old salt and slaves. Crossbow isn't really economic. We see the Crusades stimulate, right? Stimulate trade between Europe and world. What else? Try to just think of just like vocab terms to do with economics in this time period, right? Economic systems, economic philosophies, definitely period 4, 3, 4, 5. In 4, 5, 6, we'll really see those take off, especially economic philosophies. We see the minting of coins goes up, mail transport, glass making. Right, so we're trying to move into period 4 a little bit. Yeah, Potosi's period 4. All right, so you guys want to move into the next period? Where we see open water navigation, banking, describing, right? All right, so let's start moving into period 4, since I see you guys talking about period 4 a little bit more. Okay. All right. So let's start talking again about social classes during period 4. Like same thing we've been doing. You see encomienda system. We see industrialization might be economic. The Enlightenment begins. So equality, we see beginning of some movements. Casta system. Slavery, especially we see chattel slavery, right? Child labor is really more period 5. We see joint stock companies, which is economic. Right. Remember, all these are all great. Try to remember them for either future periods or for future themes. Mulattoes, right? We see Russian serfdom. We see Christine de Pizan, feminism, Peninsulares, Creoles, Mestizos. We see Viceroys. We see indentured servitude. So these labor systems I'm going to leave for economic. They are social as well, but I'm going to wait, until economic to talk about them. Nuclear families, Ambos, persecution, Jews, Protestant Reformation. Again, we can also drop that in cultural. Sophia, white supremacy and social Darwinism really takes off in period 5. Lutheranism, again, that's really cultural, right? Religion. There's more social changes, right? We see the Debs-Schirmer system, and let's all drop that again in political. Revolutionary thought, Calvinism, right? Debs-Schirmer we talked about. Catholic Reformation. The jizya, the Arab slave trade. Locke, natural rights. A lot of these things are also political that are social because they're so interlocked. The shogunate, scientific revolution, they'll be cultural again. Mass literacy. Yeah, religions are more cultural. That's why I'm trying not to drop as many of them in there. Right, Adam Smith, he's really economics. All right, so we're starting to move into more politics. Let's just jump right into the political, what goes on politically. Think of empires, people that influence politics, stuff like that. Like colonies, janissaries, King of Qing, 30 Years' War, Ottoman Empire, gunpowder empires. We see expansion into the Americas, Peter the Great, direct and indirect rule, maritime empires such as the Spain, England, France, the Netherlands. Those are the main ones. Machiavelli, Safavids and Mughals, Ashoka. Actually, Ming and Qing is really period 5. Well, they start in period 4. Absolutism, siege of Constantinople, colonialism, Louis the 16th or 15th, 14th, I don't really know. English Civil War, Westernization, 7 Years' War. Right, we see the Battle of Talus River, Nope, that's period 3. That's what I'm thinking of. Hundred Years' War, period 3. Muhammad, period 3. Mehmed II. The Bourbon Kings. Suleiman the Magnificent. French Revolution is period 5, really. It's also not in the AP World curriculum. Ivan the Terrible. The Ming Dynasty you mentioned. Joint stock. British occupy India. Monarchies. Emergence of capitalism. Sec. Right, we see Columbus, right? Ferdinand. We see the times of troubles, social contract. We can mention that's political. Colonialism we mentioned. Scientific revolution. Mughals. Tokugawa shogunate. Divine right of kings. The Renaissance, right? And that's also cultural. The Treaty of what was it called? Spanish Inquisition. Vasco da Gama. We see the Treaty of Tordesillas. I'm going to butcher this, but I'll fix it. Exploration. Vinci is cultural because he's an artist, right? Magna Carta was period 3. That's right. Right, the Medicis. See in general, just also see financing, art. Q, the name that's kind of cultural. It's kind of like a cultural thing, right? Queen Isabella. Bartholomew Diaz. Henry Hudson. Constitutional monarchs. Financing of art, yeah, that's kind of right. Protestant Reformation could definitely be considered political, though, despite its religious. Right, so we see indulgences. Lead to the Protestant Reformation. We see the Glorious Revolution. Habsburgs. Queen Elizabeth first. Martin Luther. Oliver Cromwell. Right, so a lot of these things are starting to move into period 5, especially because period 4 politics really bleed into period 5 a lot. Humanism is kind of cultural and philosophical. Parliamentary monarchies we mentioned with that stuff like that. All right. So let's start moving into interaction with the environment, and this one's definitely something that that we can see in this time period, especially, right? We see the Columbian Exchange. Let's start us off right there. Triangular trade, that's economic, but we'll see the mines, right? We see silver, crops, we see cash crops specifically, Middle Passage, the spread of what is it called? Spread of smallpox. We see Potosi, sugar plantations, transatlantic trade, right? That's economic, actually. See wind patterns, see the westerlies, right? Depopulation and Democrat in Africa. The Little Ice Age, right? That's this time period. New crops and animals. Move from old to new world. Sugar in the Caribbean, biodiversity. See the great dying, right? 90% of natives die. Plantations, Jamestown, urbanization, tobacco, the Atlantic slave trade, deforestation, again, oil depletion, silver mines. You see indigo, coffee starts to trade during this time, fur trapping. See then animals starting to get hunted, maize spreads, Pacas and the llamas in the Andes, potatoes in Ireland. But I start to think of like now, yeah, you see population increase in Europe, the monoculture in Ireland, sugarcane. Right, the fur trade, Russian discrimination against Siberians, that's social, so I'll add that up there. Skills and the development of mixed races, right? Now that we see that the two worlds collide. Potatoes we mentioned. The Irish potato famine is in 1840s. Bananas, move to the Americas. See rice, move to the Americas. Cash crops, I'll write that in economics as well. Creole languages. Right, so it feels like we kind of got everything down for that. Just a lot of crops to know, a lot of just interaction between humans and the environment, right? We also see the Great Migration, see whaling begin this time period. Very, very tail end, we see whaling. We see spread of religions. We see syncretism, especially. Trade. All right, so it looks like we've got interaction pretty much done. So let's move straight into period 4 now, culture, right? So let's think about cultural changes, especially think about like, just think regional, right? You know, what do you see culturally happening in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, right? We see voodoo, human sacrifice. These, okay. Edict of Nantes, spooky theater, classicism, the Renaissance, the scientific revolution, haikus, Protestant Reformation, humanism, the Chinese exam system continues, slave songs, that's something new. Philosophy, right? So we see humanism, secularism, modern westernization, Enlightenment thinking, printing press. I'm trying to think of maybe some artists now, right? Calvinism, Da Vinci, Anglicanism, Romanticism is really late P4. Gutenberg has the Renaissance man. We see Hobbes and Locke. Shakespeare, mini paintings, right? Galileo, Ptolemy, Copernicus, heliocentrism, Machiavelli, right? Principia Mathematica, Raphael, women's rights, Taj Mahal, Michelangelo, there we go. Heliocentrism mentioned. Picasso's way later. Picasso died in the 1970s. Barry Wollstonecraft, Mughal mausoleum, classicism. Wow, I cannot type. Vespucci, Rembrandt, feminine mystique, individualism, Donatello, Botticelli, maritime technology, definitely. Right, so we see Muslim tech goes to Europe, Catholic Reformation, Notre Dame was way earlier. As what you mentioned, scientific method, piracy in the Caribbean. Okay, I just got something now. I can't see the chat. Oh, whoops. Thank you, Jillian. Newtonian physics, and with that, we see the development of calculus. You know, all you AP calculus people are shivering right now. Two types of saddles. Virgin of Guadalupe. Syncretism. All right. Revolutions are not way later, but in period 5. Calvinism. For humor theory. Sikhism, definitely Sikhism. Christianity spreads across ocean. Printing press we mentioned. Whoops. Yeah, I didn't even know what that was. So, yeah, if you see something that's wrong in here, seriously correct me. Right, so we see music from African slaves. All right, so I think that kind of covers it for culture. We got a lot of stuff in for culture. So let's start moving into economics for grade 4. And this is a category. This is something that we should be able to fill in like crazy. So like economics. One big thing should come to mind when you think of economics in this time period. Mercantilism is especially a huge thing. Joint stock companies, globalization, Columbian exchange, isolationist Japan, European involvement, triangular trade, inflation, silver trade, East Indian companies. Right, so we see the BIC, BOC, triangular trade. Not communism quite yet. Right, China, we see Zheng He, early period 4, way early. Like, I don't even know. I think it actually ended in 1433, but he's in the curriculum of period 4. See the Potosi mines, cash crops. Adam Smith is period 5. He publishes The Wealth of Nations in 1776. Right, exports and imports. See piracy. We also see salutary neglect. We see the encomienda system. Right, helps us think about labor systems, right? Cottage industry. Price revolution, I'm not sure what that is. The silver trade really takes off, right? We see Spain to the Americas. We also see it to go to China, right? Chattel slavery, slave exports, serfdom, coerced labor, right? So what are some types of coerced labor? Serfdom. We also see indentured servants, right? Hacienda system. See the decline of the Silk Roads. Servitude, slavery, yep. Can't believe, wow, I forgot slavery. The Gilded Age is like the 1890s, I believe. 1890s, like early 1900s. I could be wrong. We haven't gotten there yet. Water-based trade, right? We definitely see maritime trade, right? Transatlantic trade, regional, the caravels, late 1800s. Okay. Right, we see the Portuguese Empire, galleons. We see sugarcane plantations, right? From there, we can say cash crops. Slaves are forced to cut down sugar, definitely. Trade markets, pilgrims. No taxation without representations like the 1760s. Northwest Passage doesn't exist. Tobacco, definitely. Indigo, like South Carolina. See the fur trade, definitely. We see that in like Canada. Dutch East India Company, we mentioned. VOC, right? Where we see the fur trade. Siberia. Beaver Wars. China closes ports. Ice Islands. Hudson Bay Company. Right, we see all those goods, right? Gold, silver, spices, porcelain, guano, iron, silk. All good things to know. Right, growth of, or I think I said beginning of capitalism. What else do we see? Right, economics. Royal charters. All right, looks like we're kind of slowing down for that. So this is all of period 4 that we've pretty much just outlined right here. So let's start moving into period 5, right? So you can see I started a whole nother chart down here for period 5 because period 5 and 6 are definitely going to be the biggest periods, right? So start thinking about social. So drop some social effects during period 5, right? 1750 to 1900. Do revolutions. It's also political. We can drop those, all 4 of them down. Cottage industry. That's more economic, I guess. What else do we see? Nationalism, definitely. Middle class growth. Feminism, there's Wollstonecraft. Rouge, Free States. We see, oops, there we go. Women, higher role in society. see social movements in general, right? We see things like abolitionism. We see feminism with Australia, right? And here's where we can talk about racism a bit. I know you guys were mentioning that labor laws, right? Women and children working could be considered economic, so keep that in the back of your head. Child labor, unionism, social Darwinism. There we go. White man's burden, Chinese Exclusion Act. Oops, oh my God, turn those T keys. We see absolute monarchies, proletariat, emancipation of the serfs. So, scientific racism. Sepoys, right? We see the Sepoy Rebellion. A lot of these also will be repeated probably in political. Class diversification, that's a great word. A lot of these conflicts I'm going to drop in political rather than, right? Mexican Revolution, I think that's the 1920s actually. I could be totally wrong. Right, these revolutions that you're dropping will definitely be put in political. So we're trying to think of more social things, right? You know, what happens to classes, gender, race? We see the Enlightenment. Right, all right, so it seems like we kind of covered all that. So let's start moving into political, right? And I see the first thing you guys are really jumping to are revolutions, right? Well, I need a bullet. There it is. We see things like the American, Haitian, French, and Latin America. Imperialism, revolutions of 1848. French Revolution mentioned. Imperialism, Napoleonic codes, radicalism, republicanism, Young Turks, Sant, Louverture, Boxer Rebellion, the Meiji Restoration, Reign of Terror. Voltaire, he calls for freedom of religion, self-strengthening, Taiping Rebellion, Sino-Japanese War, right? American Civil War, Bastille, Napoleonic Wars, right? Jefferson, Tanzimat reforms, Bolivar, Treaty of Kanagawa, British Raj. Tons of political stuff going on. Washington, see rebellion in India, right? 1857. Concert of Europe. Opium Wars, yeah, definitely Opium Wars. American independence. Egypt breaks away. Congress of Vienna. You see Perry Door for Africa. Roe Doctrine. See the Berlin Conference, right? German and Italian unification. There we go. We see Kaiser Wilhelm, right? See Otto von Bismarck, liberalism. Right, we see the sick man of Europe. Let's see. Crimean War. I believe that was earlier, but I'm not sure. We see Garibaldi. We see the Spanish-American War, right at the tail end, right? So that's 1898. nationalism, neocolonialism. Right, so we're there we go. All right, so in a half hour, if we're not done, I'm gonna have to create a new session. So I'll try to work that out when we do. I'll try to see how that works. You know, hopefully we make it, but that's why we need to start moving fast, right? We see the Russo-Japanese War, annexation. We see Manifest Destiny. We see the National Assembly. Anti-Semitism. That's really history-wide. That's court oath. 5-year plans are period 6. Right. End of divine right. Congress of Vienna mentioned Articles of Confederation. Utopian socialism. That's also economic. See the removal of Native Americans. That looks like a really good place to stop. We've got a ton of terms here. All right, so let's start moving into interaction with the environment, right? So like what's going on with the environment in period 6? I think industrialization, imperialism. Well, we could also drop the doormat and stuff like that. There we go. All right, so industrialization leads to environmental damage, right? The Panama Canal, pollution, Suez Canal, urbanization like crazy, right? Fossil fuels, overpopulation, right? We hit 1 billion in like the 1800s. Destroying environment, right? Factories. The Ice Age ends. Migrations, just tons and tons of migrations. Oh geez. See, what else we see? We see steamboats. Quinine. I'm not sure when quinine is, but it might be. We're crowding. Smallpox vaccine, definitely. Coal mining. Gold rush. Railroads. Birth control really comes into time for time period 6. Ethnic enclaves, definitely. Steamships we mentioned. Where we see the Congo taken over for industrialization. We see railroads I mentioned. We see skyscrapers, right? Grammarly's having a fit right now. The Trans-Siberian Railroad. See rubber, export economies. That's really economics. Westward expansion. Trail of Tears. Forced migration. Right, what else? Personnel might be the early period 6, yeah. I'll take that out. The seed drill, definitely, right? Industrialized agriculture. Seed drill. cotton gin, plantations, cotton, right? King cotton, to the 4-field system. Palm oil, the evolution, plow, right? Eli Whitney, we can mention him in economics a bit more. Diamond mining, ivory, definitely. We also see starting poaching a bit more. Suez Canal, okay. Gold, right. All right, I think that kind of covers it for interaction with the environment. Migrations are really the major thing. So let's go back up here and just kind of list some major migrations that took place during this time period, right? Also electricity. See the second industrial revolution. Right, so try to think about some migrations, right? So you see the Irish to America, Asians to California, Spanish to Mexico, Native Americans west. We also see Indians, right, to England, South Africans to England and India. We see to Australia, convicts, Asians go to Polynesia. Okay, so that seems like some good migrations to know. All right, so let's move right into culture, right? So think about art during this time period. Think about religion. What's going on with science and technology, especially, are huge in this time period. I think those are going to be the bulk of this area. Where are we? Wait, whoa. There we go. See the Enlightenment. Nope, I can't type still. Oh, jeez. There we go. Now I can go. Impressionism, realism, the ghost dance, scientific revolution was a lot earlier, the Communist Manifesto, Cubism, Romanticism, Westernization, Picasso. This is like late period 5, world tradition, Expressionism, Seneca Falls, I saw, socialism, Zionism, definitely. Capitalism will be economic. So we'll get to capitalism. Telegraphs, suffrage, Japan, conservatism, Mozart, deism, definitely deism, liberalism, a lot of isms in this time period. Albert Einstein, really period 6, his contributions. Right, the Enlightenment, natural selection, Rachmaninoff, the phones, basic literacy, so it means public education, right? Yep, deism is basically where they believe that a god exists, but that it doesn't influence the world around us. It basically created the world and then just popped out of existence. Great Awakening, right? So you see the first and second Great Awakening. Okay. Okay. You see well, phones start in the 1800s. Romanticism. We see Voltaire. Holocaust period 6. See the light bulb. Radio. Montesquieu. Audio 3 and 4. We see the assembly line. It's economic. Pride and Prejudice. We see, I think that's published in this time period. See the water wheel. It's kind of technological. Racial tensions, right? The Watt steam engine. Freud, right? He's in the 1800s. Voltaire, we wrote down. Carnival's Lock. Cotton gin, that's technological, yeah. Natural rights. It's life, liberty, and property. So what else? Think of any cultural, I think we kind of covered the coffee houses. Social contract. Rosetta Stone is discovered during this time period. It isn't created during this time period. Right, we see universal white male suffrage. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Wow. The opium addiction. Right. I think that's a good place to stop with culture for 3 to 5. Now let's move into economics, right? Yeah, so economics, right? So this shouldn't be too hard to know. I saw you guys dropping all of the economic, more jobs, assembly line, communism, monopolies, socialism, communism, right? We see the Communist Manifesto, which is in 1848. Adam Smith, capitalism, free market, the corporatism to a bit, right? Don't see like international corporations quite yet. See factories, child labor, laissez-faire, Marx, right? Marx/Marxism, the economic liberalism. We see Mill, the invisible hand, right? The idea that we have a self-correcting economy. We see unionization. We see Marxism is related to communism, is related to socialism. They're all kind of, we see women get in factories. We see Malthus, the factory system. We see economic imperialism, right? We see like bananas. We see The United Fruit Company. We see Dole Plantation. We see the stock market. The enclosure movement isn't until period 6. We see self-strengthening. Oceanic whaling. Labor unions. Transnational businesses, really period 6 that we see. All right. Capital. Loss of slaves. All right, so that seems like a lot of the stuff that we need to know for period 6 or period 5 for economics. You could always go in and add more. But let's just, for sake of time, move up to period 6 and start and just finish this off, right? So we have social for period 6. So start to drop in, what we see in period 6 really socially changing, right? Feminism, nationalism, feminism, globalization, diversity, civil rights. Green Revolution's interaction with the environment, universal suffrage, communism, desegregation, apartheid, the LGBTQ movements. We see, what else do we say? Civil disobedience, freedom/decolonization, Zionism, Pan-Africanism, anti-Semitism, militarism, the Holocaust, right? Fascism, Nazism, negritude movement, I don't know how to pronounce it. Pan-Arabism, tons and tons of isms. The Great Leap Forward, NATO's political. A lot of these are political, really. Warsaw Pact is political genocides, right? So we see the Cambodian genocide. We see the Holocaust. We see Rwanda. We see Armenia. Let's move into, just for the sake of time, I'll add a lot more on my own, but let's just move on for the sake of time to politics, right? So what political, what wars, let's just start, do we see in period 6? Just think wars. See Gandhi, independence, decolonization, World War I, World War II, World War III, not World War III, the Cold War, the United Nations, proxy wars, right? So we see things like Vietnam, see Korea, see we see MLK, we see the League of Nations, Bay of Pigs, Afghanistan, Cuban Missile Crisis, Pearl Harbor, Russo-Japanese War, 1905, the dissolution of USSR, fall of the Berlin Wall, the Suez Canal crisis, October Revolution. We see the Tiananmen Square protests, see Stalinism, see Maoism, see the Russian Revolution, the 6-Day War, right? If we got 10 minutes, I can always start a new stream. It's fine. The Arab Spring, Communist Manifesto. That's not this time period. Hitler. Okay, let me see what I can do to start a new. All right, I'll do that when I have to. Let's see, where are we going? Where are we? Hitler. You see the non-alignment movement. You see the first, second, third world, Japanese imperialism, fascism, anti-apartheid. See Hirohito, EU, NATO, Warsaw Pact. See dictatorships, Iron Curtain. You see Al Qaeda, ISIS, Glasnost, Perestroika, the New Deal, the Geneva Convention, War on Terror, Israel, Deng Xiaoping, Treaty of Versailles. Right, we see 9/11. Right, so that seems like a really, again, I'll go in later and add more, but just for sake of time, let's move right into interaction with the environment. And if we run out of time, here, let me see. I'm going to start a new session real quick, see how that works. There we go. Okay, I think we're okay. Okay. So let's move into interaction with the environment, right? We see the green movement, see the Spanish flu, we see chemical warfare, see the Zika virus, Ebola, Green Revolution, HIV/AIDS, GMOs, vaccines, water crisis. We see famines, right? Especially in Russia and China. Measles. See the Spanish flu mentioned. Poverty, climate change, pollution, environmentalism. We see birth control, the one-child policy, see migrations all over the place. Greenpeace. We see the cure for smallpox, which is eventually eradicated. Pogroms of period 5. Nuclear bombs, right? Just demolish land. Fallout. Fossil fuels. The baby boom. Silent spring. New energy sources. Right, we see renewable energy. Cow disease. We see the Manhattan Project. Weapons of mass destruction. MAD. The Panama Canal. Astronomical technology, right? We see as, humans reach space, right? Oil tycoons, right? Air travel, cholera, Apollo 11, World Trade Organization's economic, right? We see space stations, space debris. Right, we see I lost my bullet points. There we go. See Lake of the Dog. See Yuri Gagarin, that's his name. Thank you. See natural disasters, casualties, Skylab, Paris Accord, World Health Organization, right? Hurricanes, All right, so that seems like really the major things that we should take away from period 4 with the or period 6 with the interaction. So let's move right into culture. Let me just see really quickly if I can. All right, I think we disappeared. So let me share the. There we go. Sorry about that. I was trying to test something out. Let me see if I can just